Hare Krishna. Oh, that's good. So tonight we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is by Srila Prabhupada. It's wonderful explanatory purports, but unfortunately there's an interesting purport today in verse 1828. So first we'll sing the prayers of glorification and kirtan. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Givadatari Jaya Sodanandana Prajitaranjanaya Yashodanandana Prajitaranjanaya Yomuna Tira Vandachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Gokulanda Radhe Jaya Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Goranitai, Jaya Goranitai, Jaya Goranitai, Jaya Goranitai. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Parvakacharya Sutaru Sato Sri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki. Jai. Okay, that's mine actually. Okay. Haridas Thakur Yamuna Maya Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Jagannath Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Maipur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Nitai Go Premanande Hari Bol. So tonight we're reading from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, text 28. It's an unfortunate verse for me. It's very short, actually, but certainly it has powerful implications. So when we look at 1828, what we'll do, and if you could repeat after me, I'll do my best with the Sanskrit. Ayukta praktikita stabda. Ayukta prakta stabdiha. Sato naiskrito lasaha. Visade diga sutricha. Karta tamasa uchyate. So if we repeat again. Ayukta prakrita stabdha. Sato naiskaya krito lasa. Visade diga sutracha. Karta tamasa uchyate. Does anybody like to have a go at the verse themselves? Ayukta prataha stabdha. Sato naskritu lasaha. Visade digisuti cha. Karte tamasa uchate. Anybody else? Mothers? Adyuta kitata tabta. Sato niskritiko lasa. Visadigada sutra cha. Karta tamasal uchate. Anybody else? Okay. So I'll repeat after me the word for word translation. Adyuktaha. Not referring to the scriptural injunctions. Praktaha. materialistic, stabdaha, obstinate, sataha, deceitful, naiskritaha, expert in insulting others, alasaha, lazy, visadi, morose, dirgaha sutra, procrastinating, cha, also, karta, worker, tamasaha, in the mode of ignorance, uchyate, is said to be. Okay, so I'll read the verse, and then if you could repeat each phrase after me. But first I'll just read the verse. The worker who is always engaged in work against the injunctions of the scripture, who is materialistic, obstinate, cheating, and expert in insulting others, and who is lazy, always morose, and procrastinating, is said to be a worker in the mode of ignorance. So if you repeat each phrase after me. The worker who is always engaged in work against the injunctions. Can you repeat it? The worker who is always in the injunctions of Scripture. Who is materialistic, obstinate, cheating, an expert in insulting others, and who is lazy, always morose, and procrastinating, is said to be a worker in the mode of ignorance. Now there's a tiny purport, almost as tiny as the description, so I'll just read the purport. In the scriptural injunctions we find what sort of work should be performed and what work should not be performed. Those who do not care for those injunctions engage in work not to be done, and such persons are generally materialistic. Thank you. They work according to the modes of nature, not according to the injunctions of the scripture. Such workers are not very gentle, and generally they are always cunning and expert in insulting others. Right. They are very lazy, and even though they have some duty, they do not do it properly and put aside what is to be done later on. Therefore, they appear to be morose. They procrastinate. Anything which can be done in an hour, they drag on for years. Such workers are situated in the modes of ignorance. And certainly, there are many things I can remember from my days in industry. There were the workers who would drag it on, but somehow they had some favor from the management. It's okay, he'll get there. But in fact, they never did. Actually, they abused their privilege of this, you could call it nepotism. And it's a sad reflection of the life that you can experience in industry. And it says, and they don't care for the scriptural injunctions. Certainly I can remember that for myself. I didn't abide by scriptural injunctions. It was at a time when something happened to me in my life, but somehow I started to think, what's happening to me? I was a rugby player, but I was always late back from the rugby. And, wanting my relationships with fellow rugby players, and they're always glorifying each other, boosting their egos. And there were others that they had such ability, and I saw them too. They were great in their intellect, great players. But one of them, he came up, it was in my latter days behind the bar. I still like to serve the devotees there, or they weren't devotees, but the players there. And they would somehow, he said to me, he's very high up in the authorities of the council, and he was a good player, but he said, "Do you know, I'm not happy," in his drunken dirge. And I felt so sorry for him, and it was certainly a stage where I started to come off alcohol, and I used to go to social clubs and things like that to be with people my own age group. We used to go to the theatre, Shakespeare Theatre. I remember we would go everywhere, and it was a social club. But actually, at the end of the day, I lost the taste of socialising. What do you want for a drink? I used to say lime juice and things like that. And certainly in my workplace, there was a person called Derek Fitch, definitely in the mode of goodness. He was the last person I gave a Bhagavad Gita to. And he was a very kind person, very knowing. He wants to help, and I was a deputy to the production engineer at the time, and he was guiding me in my service there. And it says also that in the Bhagavad Gita, those who are in the factories, they're to be approached. You never know what's going to happen, and certainly that happened with me when I started to take to devotional service. They never had a vegetarian menu, but I said, "I'm sorry, I can't take this meat and everything." And they started to have their own vegetarian menu. They said, because I was popular there, I said, because it's against my beliefs. So immediately they put on a vegetarian menu. It was an incredible time. And at that time I used to make cakes. I used to love making cakes. The vegetarian cake book from the Hare Krishnas. And I used to take in flapjacks, cakes, anything that, and I used to distribute them first in the offices, but then the shop floor, the people, the workers doing the jobs, they used to like, don't we get any? I said, yeah, of course. So I had to double my output. And I spent a lot of time just cooking flapjacks and cake and giving a bit to everyone, even the chief design office. His name was Bob Wilson. I used to play rugby with him, actually. And but he was a very kind person, and he appreciated. And so it developed like that in a factory. So factory workers are a good place. You can sow a seed there. There's one person called Paul Taylor. I gave him a Bhagavad Gita, but he said the one thing I can't accept, that women have they're put down, they're put in their place. But certainly Prabhupada has put ladies in their place because they share the altar now. They share the altar with men. They've got Brahmin initiation now. And so we're blessed what Prabhupada came. And he said, here, they're lazy and always morose. There were times when I wasn't lazy actually, but I got morose when people didn't go my way, things my own way. I was a bossy boots. And then procrastinating. I never procrastinated. I went ahead, I ploughed ahead. I thought I knew right, but then I had to learn from the shop floor workers. I had to learn what they knew. I had to find out their expertise that would assist the engineering place of that firm. And so the work that should not be performed, I can only think the work was my intoxication. I never smoked, actually, and I don't like tea. But now we got herbal tea. I like it again. So I've come back to following the regular injunctions. And also, there's this, these Brahman prayers, that thing. I've at first, when I lost the use of my body, I lost my appetite. I couldn't even chant rounds. It was I was smashed, actually. I just didn't know what to do. It was coming from somewhere. And then I went to hospital. I had a really bad experience in the hospital. They cramming patients in, and I remember waiting all night for an appointment. It was a tough time. But somehow I came back to the manor. Mother Vishaka greeted me and said, "We missed you," because it took a long time to let them out of this hospital. And I won't tell you the terrible things that happened to me in there. But they used to serve pea and ham soup as the vegetarian thing. Yeah, so I would say they were ignorant of the needs of vegetarians. And when there was vegetarian food, that was all gone by the time I even get to it. The only thing I could eat was porridge. And so I suffered a bit there. But now I'm here after so many years of service. I came here in 2001 and I made many friends, but also not necessarily enemies, but had disagreements with management. But now we get to know each other. We get to know that they, would you like to be a temple president? But there was somebody. There was Shruti Dharma. He did it for years until he passed away with a brain tumor. So these things that happen to us on you could say, the path of Krishna consciousness. Now I want to refer to something that is very nice. It's a special book on path to the... Excuse me, if I can reach it. And it relates hold on. Here we are. It says, it's titled Cage Birds. It's titled Cage Birds. It says, we are captives of our own longing. That's much you could say as what was happening in this verse tonight. And we've hankered for something imagined. What did we see in those distant dreams? For now we glean our own inner dearth. We have flown from abundant hills and bathe in the sun, and we have found naught but a barren land and the winds of our fashioning, and we failed and to sustain our dreary flight, and still we cling to we have what we've become accustomed. We've been caged by our mortal whims and destitution. And so procrastination is something where you don't know what to do. You're bewildered. And the whims of our destitution, We get lost. We're like caged birds. He says here, Prabhupada has used the analogy of a cage trapped in a cage in relation to our predicament in this material existence. The soul of the living entity has become fallen from the spiritual world in order to try and enjoy separately from Krishna. However, that is not possible in the spiritual world. We have everything we truly need. Life in the material world is troublesome and ultimately unfulfilling. Krishna is infallible. However, we minute living entities are fallible and prone to falling from the spiritual sky. And that reminds me of this. There's a very nice poem, if I could find it. Oh yeah. It's here. It's a prayer from St. Francis of Assisi. It says here, I'll just read the last two paragraphs. O Divine Master, I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. It is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is dying that we are born again into eternal life. So we see there it's like a trap that we've found ourselves in. But if we stick with it, we can have a wonderful time in the spiritual world. But we must find, as it says, and not be a caged birds, leading to our whims and not knowing what we got. And he says here, there is only one God. At the dawn of the day, in any given land, those of different creeds can understand what dissipates the darkness is known as by many a name. Yet the sun, which we see, is still the same, and we can perceive warmth and light, and as it gives substance and takes away the night. And those who know God can see his ways. They know he's the same one who we should praise, for he shines bright behind the cloudy veils, and on each voyage remains the wind behind the sails. Shri Shri Radha Gokundan Ki Jai, Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanu Lord. And so we can have to learn to appreciate what we've got, not be a caged bird, and certainly these things that we're trying to find ourselves is that we have to come away from passion and ignorance, which cause us to procrastinate, to stop us doing what we do want to do. Because in devotional service, that's the one thing you're asked to do, so many things. You know, Jagat Priya leads the ladies. She's exemplary by example. So we should know that these people are acharyas for us, that we follow, we give, and but we give instruction knowing from where it came, the heart of Prabhupada actually. So let's be chaste to Prabhupada and find out what we can do to help Prabhupada. And certainly for me, I found it when I came here. I learned a lot from industry, and that there are people lazy and procrastinating, so many things, but they're suffering the same. Everyone is suffering. But it doesn't matter. You know, I never thought I would ever be able to walk or jump about. But somehow I can now go up in the rooms of Prabhupada at commemoration times for Mother Kalangana, all sorts of events that I'm now, it's opened a new door for me. And, I'm greatly appreciative of, all these people, much like Prabhupada. In the end of his days, he had to depend on his devotees. But in those last moments, he never stopped serving. His last few words in the final lesson, if you get a chance to watch that, is poignant. Yamuna Devi Dasi is doing the narration. And so please read that and read or hear about Mother Kalangana from her interview and Jiva Petit about his interview. Long-term service, Prabhupada disciples, as they were my Shiksha gurus. And I've been chastised and I've been encouraged by them. So, don't worry about chastisements. They're good for us. They're sort of like a little ladder to put us on the path, as it here, poems of the path. We need to know more about ourselves. And we only find ourselves in poems on the path. So if there's anybody who wants to say anything to me about what they've had in realization at all, please tell me about it, okay? Any gentlemen, ladies, you can tell me? No? Oh, well, I'd be surprised. Yeah? Yes. Would you like the microphone? Hold on, he's just going to get a mic. He's pretty nippy, isn't he? Here we go. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Your wonderful realizations, your heartfelt experiences, as well as your sharing is deeply motivating to us, because we are just beginning our journey, so to speak, in Krishna consciousness. So what struck me was Srila Prabhupada's purity that made all of you surrender to him and give up that old way of life and completely take to a completely new way of life, which was unheard of in the West. So this is such a miracle that Srila Prabhupada has made happen. So I was just wanting to share that wonder and that amazement that I feel seeing all of you who are now completely Vaishnavas coming from a Western culture, who have simply taken to Krishna consciousness, and now you are leading us, teaching us. So this is the great miracle that Prabhupada has performed. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your opinion, because I can remember being at a pop festival and somehow things were happening there which repulsed me. And there was people mainlining there in front of me, and I felt sick about it. Because being a father, it turned my stomach. I felt, these people, they're suffering. And I know I used to go to parties too, a lot of drinking. But I just saw people suffering, actually. And so this world is built on suffering. But eventually, like I did, I came through suffering, when the marriage split up. And in distress, there's no doubt about it. But I start to go with a spiritual path. I like Jesus, and I can still quote from Jesus. And there are many truths there. Love thy neighbour as thyself. Now the self is not only each other, but it's the soul within. So we come to understand that actually, we're assisted. And there's some prayers for bedtime. C.S. Lewis, it's the same thing. He prays for bedtime. He says to the Father, go to bed, rest, be peaceful. He's looking after you. In your heart, you'll know the next day what to do. And so C.S. Lewis, they're wonderful prayers. But they're reminiscent, they're Christian, but they're reminiscent of the teachings, as is this St. Francis of Assisi, the prayers of peace. You know, there's no difference. And that's what Prabhupada said. We should actually know. In the modes of chapter 17, there are those in the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Ignorance means that you destroy people, you suppress them, you laugh at their suffering. There's that sort of thing. I remember Tribhuwanath Prabhu. He was in Algeria. He was locked in a room that you couldn't even stand in. And he was in there 4 weeks. He suffered. He was our forerunner, and he was an amazing personality. You know, the more I think of him, and actually, he's one of the persons, or 2 of the persons, or 3 of the persons, Tribhuwanath, Mother Kalangana, and Jivapati, that I cried when they left this world. Jivapati, because I couldn't be there at that time because I was in service. Mother Kalangana, I was there, but the ashram was filled with people, so we could just worship her and offer our respects, and I sent a letter to her. And, well, Jivapati, what can I say about him? A long-time server on the thing, 40 years here. He could read, he could chant, but used to hear his, I used to hear 1:30 in the morning, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. And it was down in there while he was doing the service, all the time chanting. But I remember one time he was just up here. They had a laundrette here, and he was struggling. And I said, Jiva, well, you know, can I help you? He says, and he said to me, just chant Hare Krishna. And that was it. But immediately I went to Gadadhar and said, look, Jiva is struggling. And they got the doctors in, and they had to take him to hospital because he had TB. And he eventually passed away. But he passed away in hospital. But they didn't know why he passed away, because he was on life support machine. Seemingly he was strong, but he left his body. Why? Because he knew his service days were over. It was his life. And there's so many people that leave this. His mother Kalangana the same. She knew her days. It was just a few months after her birthday celebration. And she passed away at the Tithi of Janmashtami. So she got the ultimate blessing, you know, and I'll always remember her and be thankful for all the things she's achieved for me. She's my Shiksha Guru, and still is. I have her picture in front of me. I have her, reminds me, it's where I do my offerings. I have pictures of all those people, you know, because they can't be with me anymore. But they're in my heart. And then when I do Gayatri, I just look at them. You know, the prayers for those who've helped me. And I think about them often. There's so much I could tell you about these people. And I'd like to, you know, just share what's happening there. Is there anybody else want to raise any points at all? Okay. Yeah, come on. Yes, Mataji.
Why is it so difficult? I don't need that. Hare Krishna, thank you. I always hear you talk about Mother Krishna, and I must say that I talk about her through you.
Speak in the mic.
Amazing personality, Mother Krishna.
Yes.
Yeah, she's amazing. I wish I had met her. I'm Prabhupada. I live not far away. I miss meeting both of them. However, I wondered, why is it so difficult for us to love our neighbor as ourselves?
Say again. Can you say that?
Why is it so difficult to love our neighbors as ourselves?
Oh, yeah.
Because I go to the here, I go to the prasadam And if there are things being shared, you bet, they will.
Why should we love our neighbours as ourselves? Well, because they're part and parcel of Krishna.
Yes, but why is it so difficult?
Why is it? Well, the barriers are in ourselves. When we see things that we don't like, it's a reflection of sometimes of our own personality. It's like a mirror, actually. And there was one thing. There was one Prabhu, and he says, "You spot it, you got it." And I thought that was such a powerful phrase. It's a sutra. These, pardon?
It'd be good if you can spot that thought
Yeah,
that is stopping us from being like that, so we can spot how important it is to share and care for each other.
yeah. Well, it's a fact, but it's the best. Association with the devotees is the only thing that keeps me going. It's my life, my soul. Every morning, the scene. Yeah. Yeah. But this morning, I could dance without the support. Without the chair. I knew that the support was there. Yeah. So it was great, Great kirtan. Chandramuli Swami jumping about. Yeah, so it was great for me. It's inspiring. And the more I see these people, the more I come to know. There's a Prabhu over there. Prabhu, would you like to say something and ask? Can you pass the mic over? I know you've got a strong voice, actually. Yeah, you press the button and it'll come on.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Prabhu, I was listening.
Speak right into the mic.
I was listening to the class yesterday morning, and they were talking about when to be submissive and when to sort of stand up and say something and speak up. And I just wanted to know if you can give a bit more explanation regarding these points, specifically regarding if you're seeing things that are happening in the temple room that you're sort of maybe not happy with, or you're seeing things that are happening in the community that you're not happy with, and how to approach it from a place of not being criticizing of other Vaishnavas and other devotees, but to try and understand whether you should speak or when to speak, and how to approach it.
Well, the approach is that actually it's a danger. I remember with Dhananjaya Prabhu, one of the founders of the temple here, and I was new to the temple commander service at that time, and I approached him. He was nearest the thing. That's where the ladies go. And I said, "Oh, excuse me, Prabhu," because I didn't know who he was, and he just stopped where he was, and then I thought, "Oh dear!" And then somebody said, "Don't you know who that is? That's Dhananjaya. He's one of the founder members." But then it turned on me that actually I thought, oh no, I really placed the bloomer there. And then one day in the laundrette, we were drying their clothes, and I let him go first. I thought, he's now my superior. I now know. But what he did, I took away my drying, and when I came back, he not only dried his own clothes, he dried and folded mine. That was an amazing turnaround. Devotees are special. They don't take a grudge. And if you see somebody sleeping while they're chanting, don't wake them. They might react. It's not worth it. Let them sleep. They probably need it. It's like Jayananda. Prabhupada had the same thing. Don't worry. Let him sleep. Bhaktivedanta, he had another pastime. This was this person that came to him. He said, "What can I do?" And he said, "Right, just come into the temple. And then during the class, he fell asleep. But the trouble was, before that, he couldn't sleep. But then when he woke up, he said, that was amazing. I've had a sleep that I've never had before. And he became a devotee. So these unusual circumstances that we've been given, they're the path. Don't interfere, whatever you do. It's not worth it. If you're unsure, you can ask somebody. It's best. I had a problem up in the Prabhupada's room once. A person constantly opening the windows, and it was freezing. I said, well, what about Prabhupada? You may like fresh air, but you've got to think about him. He's there. He's there with us. And now I can go upstairs for the first time in my life. Since being thing. Because I'm now being taught how to walk and how to support myself. The only thing, the reason I'm in the chair is because I can't speak, from too far away from the proper positioning of the cameras and everything. It's good, that you make these points. And here's the team leader herself. So, if you go down the Goshala tomorrow, oh yeah, this is an advert. Breakfast starts early. It's 8:15 instead of 9 o'clock. So please be aware of that. If you want breakfast and you want to go and see the cows, go down early, first thing in the morning, 8:15. So that's just a tip, for those who want to go and see the cows early. Yeah. Yeah, well, 1 o'clock, I don't advise it. But how long do you take to get here? That's the main thing. For me, to get here on time, I have to be up at 3 o'clock, do my Gayatri, and then I take a shower around 4 o'clock. And it's like that. But I have to have an assistant to shower. It's one of those things. I've got this body. But it works. It's, Dhruva Maharaj is doing such a good job for me. And he's been there so long supporting me in that way. So that, I can glorify, these people that tend to help their brothers, As they say, there's another person there, looks after his brother. He jumps about, but he's great. He's a devotee. Actually, they're more ecstatic than us, isn't it? So it's worth knowing that. So please let it happen. And now they're going to wait, and they're going to set up for Gaur Arti. So I'll have to finish here. So thanks for your question, your points, Mataji, everyone, and I appreciate your support too, and I appreciate your service. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Vancha Kopa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha. Okay. Be careful. Somehow I'm like Humpty Dumpty. I've got to put myself together again.
वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुता पदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्रीराधा कृष्ण पादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च भज श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्तवृन्द भज श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्तवृन्द भजते कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवा